we are going to be talking about into week 10 and to our 10th week. We are back to the mindset, the fear of resistance, procrastination. And procrastination from what? Procrastination from us living the intentional life that we want to live. And living intentionally, it's a daily practice. It's a daily practice. It's not a final destination. You're still going to have times where self-doubt will win over and procrastination will win over. But it's a mindset that we live to recognize it and to bring us back to our intentions quicker. That's what a mindset is about. That is resisting your fear and your resistance. So when procrastination comes about and you're feeling like you're going to procrastinate, or if you're feeling self-doubt, that's when you need to recognize the emotion that's allowing you to feel that. You almost have to put it like on the witness stand and question it. I'm procrastinating of this because of why? What emotion? You almost have to put it like on the witness stand and question it. I'm procrastinating of this because of why? What emotion is triggering this procrastination? What emotion is triggering this self-doubt? And that's what we want to get to. Good morning, Farm Girl. Glad that you're in here. That's what we want to get to. And I'll say it one more time. So living intentionally is not a final destination. And it's a daily practice that we do. It's a daily practice because even when you live intentionally, you're going to have times where self-doubt can win over. You'll have times where you will procrastinate. But it's more of a way of staying mindful, of realizing when we procrastinate, realize that when we have fears, and then trying to study and find out where that fear comes from, to really question it. Where did that trigger come from? Why am I procrastinating? Why did my self-doubt come back? And where did it come from? What triggered it? And for us to overcome procrastination, for us to overcome self-doubt, we have to look at it. We're not doing it because we're afraid that we're going to fail? A lot of times people look at failure as a final destination. So I'll quit trying this because every time I try it, I fail at it. And that's the mindset we got to get out of, because sometimes we try to do things or feel different things, and then we feel uncomfortable about it. And it's okay to feel uncomfortable, because when you're feeling uncomfortable and you have doubts and you start exploring why and where those doubts come from, then growth starts to happen. Then the mindset shifts in. Then we understand why we procrastinate. We might feel that we're procrastinating because it's too overwhelming. What makes it too overwhelming? Could it be a possibility that what feels too overwhelming, it's just too big of a project or a life change to take on? That's where we would break that down into smaller steps. So again, it's a daily practice. When you're living intentionally, you're practicing it every day. You need to bring yourself back to the intentions. And what takes us away would be our mindset. What takes us away would be our fears. What takes us away is those fears and those mindset trigger anxiety that causes our procrastination. And when we realize that it comes from maybe our goals are too big, we're trying to bite it all off at one time. It's trying to like maybe eat a whole sandwich possibly in one bite, when we know that we could just take a bite at a time and enjoy it. So, and it's also about how we can respond better tomorrow. So when we're practicing that on a daily basis, it's going to lead you to responding better tomorrow. It's going to lead to mental repetitive habits and thoughts that when we remind ourselves, hey, I'm trying to live intentionally. I'm trying to not eat as many sugars. I'm trying to maybe go on more walks. I'm trying to be stronger in my mind. I'm trying to be kinder to myself. I'm trying to have self-compassion, and I'm trying to reflect. So dealing with these inner battles in our life that stop intentional living is something that is a daily practice. Failure is not a final destination. Failure is part of growth, and failure is something that's necessary in our life in order for us to grow and to go forward. So, talking about week 10 of 12, 2 more weeks after this, 2 more weeks after this. So, one of the things I think that would be a good place to start today. This is our second time doing this week. We do this on Tuesdays and we do this on Fridays. And I'm not a doctor and I'm not a therapist, but I've applied a lot of things into my life that I feel are worthy and worth talking about. So, what inner battles like fear, self doubt, procrastination do you feel is the loudest in your life? When it comes to you doing what you want to do, when it comes to you wanting to do something that is an objective that's important for you to address the self-doubt, to address the procrastination. And knowing that it's not a final destination, it's just part of the process. And when we go forward in life, sometimes self-doubt will win, will have some wins. Sometimes procrastination will have some wins. Recognizing that and bringing us back to the mindset that we want to live intentionally, that we want to unpurposely have some wins that are going to take us further every day, and staying in that mindset is what it's all about. So we're looking at on week 10 our mindset, our fear and resistance, procrastination, self-doubt, fear of failure, respond and resist with intention. Putting that word back in there. Understanding your fears and time management and self-regulation. So what do we mean by understanding our fears is that when we have moments of procrastination or we have things that we know need to be done, and we're using procrastination as a type of avoidance, and we're avoiding it because something about that is making us resist taking the action to fulfill either that need or that responsibility. And that this is where we self-reflect and we find the emotion that's attached to the procrastination, to find out that we're bigger than that emotion, and it's okay for that emotion to be there, but we can't let that emotion take charge of us not living intentionally. And sometimes, like I said, it will. So this is where we apply effort. We do our journaling and we practice self-kindness. Because you failed at something a while back ago does not mean you're going to fail at that today. If you're somebody that no matter what you do in life, you have to do it with appreciation for yourself. You have to recognize where you failed, what went wrong. You don't have to go back to fix it, but moving forward, if it's something that's staying in your life, your objective would be to address what caused the procrastination, what kept you from doing that, what kept you from living up to your standards of life, what kept you from living with your morals and your values. And it's also about how can I respond better, not just tomorrow, but how can I respond better to how I'm reacting toward my fears, respond better to how I'm reacting toward my life and my intentional life. So we have a lot to go over today, and I'm glad that you're in here. And we have a lot to talk about. The first one would be understanding the inner battles that we have in life. And the self-doubt, this self-doubt's pretty big, because self-doubt is this inner critic that we have. And this critic likes to talk to us. You can't do that. That's not for you. That's for this kind of person. That's for that. That's this critic, right? We need to put this little self-doubt critic on the witness stand and start drilling him. Find out where he comes from, what he's about, and why he brings these emotions into our minds. And let that critic know that we're living an intentional life. And like I said, it's not going to take us to that final destination, but it's going to take us through some experiences to help us cope with overcoming the fear, with overcoming the resistance that we have. So breaking it down into the three biggest uh, battles: self-doubt, fear of failure, and procrastination. So self-doubt, that whispering voice, is always like, who do you think you are? That really, it stems from these desires to protect our ego. And when we're protecting our ego, one of the benefits that we get from that is it's comfortable. It's comfortable when we're protecting our ego. It's comfortable when we are where we've always been, right? It's kind of like when you wake up but want to go back to bed. You're staying in there, but you got to get up. You got to get up and you got to realize that this isn't what I can be doing today. I need to get up. I need to get ready and I need to start my day. And we do that in small steps. We would be grateful. We would get out of bed. We would move. We would make coffee. All these tiny little steps to finally our mind wakes up. So when we're changing from self-doubt, when we're changing from procrastination, it's little steps like that. You don't wake up in the beginning of the day, just wake up fully charged and ready to go, and things start happening before you start responding. You don't just dive into everything. So when we're talking about our fears and resistance, we go about it in a tactics, a tactical way. And one of our tactics is to start questioning it, to start writing down at the moments when we're procrastinating, writing down or thinking of why you have a fear to go to this place, why you have a fear to apply for a new job, why you have a fear to possibly seek a different life that brings you more peace and happiness. And do you feel you don't deserve it? And your ego and your self-doubt and everything's going to say, hey, this is comfortable. We're okay where we are. Stop dreaming like that. Stop dreaming too big. The last time we tried this, there was a lot of failure. Well, the last time we tried this, think about it this way. There may not have been a plan. There may not have been a plan for us to start living intentionally. And it's almost like society teaches us that failure is a final destination. It's kind of like, oh, look at this person over here. Look at that loser, if you will, over here. They're in a bad situation because they deserve it. They have that fit. They're always going to be a failure. That's where the word flunky comes from, or somebody that they feel is an outcast of society. And if we're told that and we're raised that way and we feel that, and then we fail once, but now it must be true. Now it must be true. You know, some of the greatest people, just in history, when you look back, they came out of orphanages. They came out of no education. These were people that were explorers that mapped things out. They had courage, and the courage to plow forward, to go through the thickness of life, the courage to overcome fear, and the courage to live a life full of intentions. Knowing that there were days that there was doubt. Should I have not done this? Should I have done? No, I'm going to continue it. I've started this and now I want to complete it. Because when you start something and you want to complete it, that is having goals. That is having a destination. And along the way and along that road, there's going to be bumps. There's going to be hiccups. There's going to be resistance. And a lot of that comes from our inner voice. And our inner voice, we need to remind it, hey, I'm living intentionally now. I'm done listening to you. We're going to reset that with a new mindset. We're going to tell our little voice, I know what you're up to. You're trying to keep me where I am. But in my mind, my reasoning part of my mind knows that I can get this job. I can get this degree. I can handle this type of hobby. And I'm able to do it. So then fear might set in. And fear is great at paralyzing us. Fear is sometimes just the root behind the procrastination, having this deep sense of doom if we do something, and that we must belong here in this deep sense of doom, because I've always felt it. It's something that I've always felt. And we've just never really explored all the way back to the beginning of our lives to see where it came from, which doesn't matter now. And we're not going to go back there and fix it. We don't have a time machine. But we do have a time machine, and that one is moving forward. It is in drive. It's in direct drive. And while it's driving, we're going to stay present with all of our mechanisms in our head, working and focusing that we're moving forward with intention. We're looking forward to, sometimes we'll have to let go of our ego, and we'll have to battle with our inner voice. And we do this by taking some risk, by sometimes getting out of our comfort zone, by making the changes that we always wanted to make, by not pleasing others. One of the biggest fears is I'm afraid of what people will say. And if I tell them that this is my new goal, or if I tell them this is what I'm becoming, or if I tell them that I want to one day write a book, or one day I want to go down to the local theater and do something. I mean, think about all the things that we don't do because of fear of what people say. You're in charge of living your life. It's you that you want to please. It's you need to be compassionate toward. Which means it's only you that can hold you back. And understanding that that it's not going to be perfect. And even if you don't do it, you're still not in a perfect life. Living intentionally is a mindset of reminding yourself that we live intentional. It's not a perfect final destination. You go through this 12 weeks of talk and listen to all of the motivation that you want to. It's the mindset. It's the mindset. And it's the mindset that understands your procrastination. It's the mindset that you develop on a daily basis, living on a daily basis as a reminder that you're trying to change. And it's hard to change when your inner battles and your self-doubt little whisperer in your head says you can't do this. Try it this way. When you have the self-doubt and it says you can't do this, how are we going to do this? We will do this. We need a plan to do this. We need a plan to get out of this lifestyle into this lifestyle. And when I'm talking about lifestyle, I'm talking about a mindset, a lifestyle with intention of how I'm going to live, what boundaries that I have in my life. And boundaries are pleasant to have into your life. And you just need to know how to respond to this inner world of yours that has fear. Respond to this inner world of yours that has doubt. You respond to it and you deal with it with grace. That's right, with kindness and with understanding. And when you give yourself grace and you give yourself understanding and kindness to try to figure out where these fears came from, and you do that on a daily basis, and you do that every time a fear arises or every time a self-doubt arises, then it becomes more habitual in your life to live intentional. It grounds you again. It grounds you. So you don't want to keep your fears grounding you and procrastination grounding you when it says, oh, I can't do that. Okay, I can't do that. Because my self-doubt has now had another win in my life. My self-doubt kept me from ongoing with something every day. I can tell you personally that doing these videos help me. And one of the ways that they do is when we have a week, for example, we were on Tuesday and today's Friday, I'll reflect on how Tuesday went. And then I make little notes of how Friday should go to finish up this week, of what I might have left out. What didn't I talk about? What didn't I address? Some of that comes from messages I get. Some of that just comes from rewatching this. So that's reflection, self-reflection. So if this was a personal journey of mine, where I spent 2 hours a week talking about this, in between, I'm going to have a reflection of what could I have talked about more? What could we have gone over more? How can I help? So You know, our brains view new ideas as potential risk. And where this comes from is it's in our DNA. We're constantly scanning for risk, even though we live in houses right now. Well, there at one point we didn't, and we were always scanning around for different risk in our life. And sometimes we view task as being a risk. And so what happens when there's a risk? Well, we're going to have some resistance. Our mind's going to be telling us this isn't probably safe. We're going to have fear, and there's your resistance. And now it's triggered anxiety. Now it's triggered uh, doubt. It's triggered fear of failure. So this is where we want to understand I'm living intentional. Why do I think that this is a risk? Why do I think that this is going to be failure? Am I protecting my ego so I don't fail? So I'm not embarrassed? There's nothing embarrassing about uh, changing your life. And your only audience should be yourself. That's the only audience, because you're your worst critic. And critics do what? They review and they write. And sometimes we need to interview this critic of ours and find out where he's getting his information, because you're going to find out that a lot of his information came from childhood, back in your teen years, from even just tiny moments of trauma. Not big trauma. There's little trauma. There's tiny trauma. Maybe you had a lot of little bits of trauma. Maybe you were bullied. Maybe your parents didn't address you, make you feel like you could try something different. Maybe they were perfectionists. We don't know. I don't know. But I know when I reflect, I know where some of my fears come from. I know where some of my self-doubt comes from. So you too can find out. So when we're avoiding risk altogether in life, then there's probably some type of trauma associated with that we have to understand that, wow, all of that time it came from that. You know, when you are a kid and you get your first bicycle, you're going to fall off of it the first year a couple of times. You're going to run into something. You're going to fall, but it's exciting to get back on it, right? Even though you fell once, because when you're riding it a little bit, you're feeling the excitement, you're feeling the freedom. You know, when you overcome fears in life, that same excitement happens, that we're a free bird, like we've been let out of a cage. And this whole time with our ego holding us back, that was in charge possibly of some of our fears, holding us back. Now we feel free. Now we're driving. Now we're leaving this home that we thought was just so protecting us, but what it was really doing was it was resisting us from living an intentional life that we chose. Instead of it allowing us, this is what you should do, this is what you need to do, it never asked us, hey, what do you want to do? What would you like to do, and how can I help you? That is what living intentional is. We won't have accidental things happen or unintended results. Unintended results sometimes stem from fears. Unintended results come from procrastination. Unintended results come from us resisting what we want to do, but some of our fears happen. So when the little voice is whispering, to yourself, who do you think you are? Why do you think you're doing this? This isn't safe. This isn't something that I want you to do. And we listen to it. We need to go back to who put that little voice in there, who made that recording for you. And then you repeated it throughout your life, right? So, if you think sometimes that a failure is going to mess up your social standing, it doesn't. It just doesn't. So, avoiding the negative emotions that are associated with the task. So that's where some of the procrastination comes from also. And some of it's boredom, fear, inadequacy, and overwhelming. Inadequacy. Feeling inadequate to do something, to complete something. Feeling overwhelmed by it means we're trying to do too much at once instead of studying it, instead of writing it down and making a plan. So it keeps us from just taking risks altogether. So we need to come up with a roadmap, some good direction to allow us to go forward, right? So one of the things that we are going to watch out for that really starts out procrastination are the triggers. We want to identify, and let me get this in here so we can talk about this. Um, of course, that light is right where that is. Sorry about that. There we go. I finally found a sweet spot there. Good morning, Norma. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about this, identifying our triggers, right? So, triggers, we know what they are. Triggers are going to, they're the beginning of the urge to procrastinate. A trigger is. So, between a trigger and your reaction, maybe you have a trigger and your reaction is to start scrolling through your phone. That's a reaction. That keeps us from doing it. I'm going to keep myself busy right now. I don't want to deal with this, so I'm now going to have a reaction. I'm going to scroll through my phone instead. So that all happens in a fraction of a second. But when you're living intentionally, you want to have a little pause and a gap there, right? Just a little pause and a gap to keep you from doing that. Because with intention, we want to have gaps there. So when you feel fear or you feel doubt rising, or that little voice telling you it's not good enough, just take a breath. And another thing is just don't react. Just take a pause. When you feel that fear's coming on or something, just take a small pause. Take a small pause in life. And then analyze it. Analyze it. That's right. And when you're analyzing something, you're naming it. You're going to name it out, right? So when you feel stuck, label it. Label that emotion. Instead of saying, I'm just lazy today, say, I'm just feeling afraid that my work won't be good enough. I'm just afraid that I might have fear. So now I'm just going to avoid it. I'm just going to avoid it now because, but when we need to label that. Why am I going to avoid it? Do you feel you're not going to be good enough? Are you naming the emotion that strips away your power and shifts your brain from panic mode to logic mode? You want to start thinking logically. So when you're analyzing and you're thinking logically, you're naming it. You're going to overcome that resistance, right? That's something you're going to work on. And then you're going to want to at that point, you can interrogate your inner critic. So when self-doubt speaks up, put this sucker on the witness stand. Ask yourself, is this thought 100% even true? What evidence do I have to the contrary? And you'll usually find that your inner critic is just terrible at providing you any type of actual facts when it comes to fear. There are no facts of why you can't do anything. That's what's messed up about our inner critics that we have. And understanding where fears come from. Fears are keeping our egos nice and comfortable and cozy so they can just exist, so they can scroll on the phone, so they can not have to get up and do anything. And that is just protecting it. Your inner critic is protecting your ego, keeping you from moving forward in your life. You can't do this, you shouldn't do that, because we don't want to crack our ego, right? So interrogate that when that doubt comes up. After you've analyzed it and after you put into this emotion, you're going to analyze it and call it out of why something changed. So when you're putting action and starting to resist the comfort zone, action, believe me, every time cures fear. And action is going to crush fear every time. And when you put action in it, you're going to start creating momentum. Momentum that my life is now intentional. And like I said earlier, an intentional life is not a final destination. What it is, it's a daily practice. It's a daily practice because sometimes self-doubt is still going to have a win. Procrastination is still going to have a win. Your problems and your mindset, the old way that you're trying to change, is still going to have a win. It's going to be there, but we're going to be aware of it so we can put ourselves back into intentional living. So we can no longer procrastinate. We're going to have it snap. In a millisecond is when procrastination happens. In a millisecond is when we don't want to do something. In a millisecond is when a fear comes in here, and that's where you have to have your pause. That's where the interrogation comes in, because your ego is going to protect you. Don't do it. You're going to be embarrassed. Don't forget, society believes failure is a final destination. Once a failure, always a failure. But how many times, what you're good at, have you failed at? Probably a lot. You know, if you played guitar, 2-3 times a month for a year, you're just going to still just kind of maybe know a couple things. But if you did it 2-3 hours every day for a year, you'd be an expert. So failure has to happen. It's part of your life. It's part of the process. It's not something to be scared of. It's not something to draw away from. It's something that sometimes we have to embrace fears, and we have to embrace failures to create the momentum with weight, along with our mindset, that this is how things happen. And that's hard to do. But it's harder not to do it. So you're going to pick a hard that is easier because you're going to get results. So going back to when you first tried to ride a bicycle and you felt that freedom when the training wheels are off of it. Well, a lot of us still fell down again and got a boo-boo, right? And we put a Band-Aid on it, but we got back on it because we remembered how good it felt. So someone that's learning an instrument, when they can't get to the next note, they can't do anything, but they practice, they go to band practice, they go to their teacher. Finally, they get a whole song down. You know how good that feels? And then they do it in front of an audience. And that feels good. So developing our life is done through practice. It's done through repetition. It's done through daily reminders that we can strengthen our resistance toward fears, right? And we can connect more with the intentional life that we want to live. It's all about that connection. And it's all about understanding our old ways. It's all about kind of shutting down our inner voice critic. And I said earlier, this is so true. You are so welcome, Amanda. Good morning. Thanks for being in here. Your inner voice critic, and I promise you this, all these things that you find for yourself, you put that sucker on the stand and you start asking him questions, that inner voice of yours. He has zero facts. He just comes from our DNA from long ago, where we're constantly scanning for everything fear, and anything different is now a new fear in your life. And that is just from hundreds of thousands of years. That's just being human, scanning for fear. And now that we live protected in houses, we think everything's a fear, that everything's going to be in our life. I better have procrastination. I need to have avoidance. I can't handle this. This isn't me. Instead of questioning it, when you question your inner critic, you're going to find out that this inner critic has zero facts about you. So let's go back into that. Let's go back into when we live intentionally. When we live intentionally, here's what's going to happen. We're going to be grounded more, but sometimes self-doubt's going to win. Sometimes procrastination's going to win. But because an intentional life isn't always the perfect life, and it's not an everyday, and it's not a final destination, but it's just a reminder to put ourselves back that we do have more control than we believe. We have more time than we believe. We're not going to let time slip through our fingers. We're not going to let the critic or what other people think run our lives, right? And we're going to try to understand the moment that we want to procrastinate, the moment that we want to scroll or just sit and watch TV, there's something that's keeping you from doing what you would intentionally like to do. So it's not today. I want you to think right now. There's things that you should do, and there's things in life that life wants you to do, but what do you want to do today? You know, you're going to take care of your responsibilities and go to work, but when you're done, what would you like to do? When you're living intentionally, you're going to purposely plan out things to do. Amanda, I run a small business too. We're all fighting with our egos, and just even writing that down and saying that is a great start, because your ego has no facts about you. And your ego is protecting a type of comfort zone that you're used to. And when you're running a business or managing people or doing things, you want to go about this and make your changes with grace, with self-compassion, and find out where some of those feelings are coming from. And it's not easy to do. It's hard. And what we've talked about here, we're in our 10th week of intentional living. There's a lot of things that we unintentionally allow to just go on because we're just used to it. We're comfortable with it. We get complacent. So when you're running your business and you're running your life, you're going to do this with intentions. We're back here on this little board. We're identifying where our triggers come from, right? This was the big one. So we want to start connecting to all the whys in our life of why this, why that, right? So when we're identifying all of these triggers of ours, what we're really doing is a trigger is just going to be an urge to procrastinate, an urge to let your emotions take over. That's what a trigger is. Something that's going to make you not who you are, to naturally respond to some things that you're responding to, right? And this is where you need to have a pause. Once you feel that, you're just going to pause. And then when you feel fear or doubt rising, just take a deep breath and don't react to it immediately. Just take a pause. And then name that resistance. That's where you're analyzing it, right? You're going to do this and practice this. Label that emotion instead of saying, I just lazy today. I'm just feeling afraid that my work won't be good enough. I'm just feeling overwhelmed, so I got to avoid it. This is where you're missing steps, writing down small steps to get done what it is you want to get done today. Naming the emotion actually strips away and this is so true. Naming out an emotion and finding that in your life strips away its power and brings you back to logic. Because one part of our brain saying, hey, shut the hell up, you can't do this. But the part of our brain that's logical says, wait a minute, let's go about this logically. Let's go about this with reason. Now, I've been listening to you, Mr. Ego and Mr. Critic, for a long time now, and I want you to start giving me some facts of where that comes from. They're going to have zero facts every time, right? So we want to get that back to being logical about ourselves. And Amanda, you've already come a long way if you have a small business, because you've now taken the risk of a paycheck from somebody else. Sometimes you might have people that get paid more than you, and then you have to manage them, and you have to trust them, and you have to trust the establishment, and our egos get in the way. Things get in our way. I'll tell you, join intentional living. That's something that you can do. So back to where we're analyzing, we're calling out the fears. We're calling them out, right? Now we're going to go into reframing some stuff, breaking stuff down, right? So one of the interesting things that I've always done in my life with my business is I like to sometimes just redefine some data. So with me, with the fear of failure that stopped me from acting out something, to resist this fear, what I always did is I always changed what the failure meant. I put it toward more of a lesson. And when we're planning out with smaller steps, I made failure part of the process. Sometimes, like when you're learning to ride a bike, failure is always going to be there, but intentionally dealing with the failure, recognizing it and calling it out for what it is. We as people like to make just everything about ourselves and everything about us and our comfort. And how's this going to happen for me? How's this going to make my life better? Well, it's going to make my life better that I won't have to face society as a failure if I just avoid this. And it's hard for me. It's hard for you. It's hard for all of us. We all get 24 hours in a day. And we talked about that. Yes, think of the failure as a challenge, Farm Girl. That is totally it. Failure is a challenge. Things are going to happen. And in our construction business, believe me, we put wrong doors in, built wrong walls, painted things wrong colors. Yeah, that's going to happen. But we can learn from that. And it comes down to sometimes it is on us, everything on our life. You got to strip away everything on the outside. Okay. And if you want validation from the outside, you're never going to get it, because what happens, it's kind of like love. When you're loving yourself more and enough, it pours out of you. And then people that you love feel it. And then so you don't need any of it back, because when it comes from you and it's you, that's loving you for the love, then you get overflown with it. When you get knowledge, you get overflown with it, and it goes into other people and you share it. And that's when that's when you have a little bit of peace in your life. You get wisdom to realize that your thought, your direction, your life is yours. Everybody else's is taken. So we don't need to get validated outside of our own minds, because we know we got this. We're the ones that are going to be dealing with the critic. We're the ones that are going to be dealing with the fears. We're the ones who have to fix the failures and the mess ups, right? And we don't do it with band-aids, right? We do it with a mindset that we craft to realize what went wrong. Here, I'm going to fix it. No, I'm not quitting business. I'm just going to go about it this way, and I'm going to make changes, and I'm going to reflect. Kind of like we're talking about this course. Anybody that was in here on Tuesday, it was slightly different. I still used all the writing, this and that, but I did reflection after Tuesdays. And I wanted to get more into the self-critic. I wanted you to examine and understand the self-critic in you and put them on the stand. Why do I feel that I'm overweight? Why do I feel that I can't quit smoking? And we're talking about me right now. Why do I feel that I'm not good enough to do this or that? And when I examine that, there's no real logical, to me, reason for me to feel this way. And it may have come from thanks for the follow. It may have came from other people saying something to me in youth. I've had large and small trauma in my life. I have a guest coming in here in a couple of minutes, and I promised some people that were in here that we were going to have somebody come in, and I got to text somebody to bring them in here. Hopefully they're going to respond. So anyway, we're talking about that, right? We're talking about crushing our fears, having advantage of them. And I shared a little analogy after you've fallen, bumped, hit a stop sign, hit a curb, fell off your bike. Do you remember the freedom when you really rode it for the longest time? How it took you away from your house, and now you're exploring. Now you're living life now because you know how to ride a bike. You know, that same feeling of mentality and freedom comes when you crush fears. When you have a win, when you win over your procrastination, when you win over your fear, where you crush your own ego and overdrive a fear you always had, the pride that you have, that's why we want to go about it with grace. That's why we want to go about it with kindness, self-kindness. Being kind to yourself will never feel overwhelming. But not addressing our fears and living unintentionally will feel overwhelming. So this is where we choose it. This is where we're going to go into next week talking about correcting, reviewing, and reflecting and adjusting of what we talked about over the last 10 weeks. That's what we're going to go about. So life is a constant review. Why didn't this happen? Has anybody ever had an employee review for you to get a raise? They're going to talk basically about the effort you put in, this and that. Give you a life review. Remember, we've talked in this course about writing our own mission statement, about doing things that make us proud of ourselves, trying to understand ourselves, to give us direction, to put together our roadmap for a good life. So we want to put together an action plan. That's what we want to do. So we've talked about identifying the triggers, analyzing, and breaking things down. This is where we're going to have an action plan and resisting your comfort zone, because nothing cures your fears like action. Nothing does, because action is what it takes. And they're about generating the momentum that we want into our life. So I have this deal where I believe procrastination actually thrives where you feel overwhelmed. That's where I believe it comes from. Now, it could be different for you, but I believe that procrastination thrives out from where you're feeling overwhelmed, and then to resist it, to make it so ridiculously small that you can't say no. That is to take something and reduce it. I got to do something that's so big. Now resist that is so big, make it small, and then believe me, you'll crush it. And don't commit to just, writing a book in one day. Commit to writing a sentence. Does that make any sense? Write a sentence of your life at a time. You don't need to write the whole book. When you have something to do, let's just compare it to writing. I need to write a chapter today. Well, why don't we just write a sentence? And then to put together a good sentence, it's not just writing one. Then you think about it, you reveal it, you think about it. Does that express what I'm trying to say? So life's just these little sentences that we write. And then over time, it becomes our book. And we go back and we reread chapters. We reflect with kindness, with gratitude. That is how life is. These little bits of sentences, little bitty steps, little baby steps. So breaking down those tasks, writing those little sentences, practice self-compassion. That is so important, to practice self-compassion. And I hope that you see that on the screen. And, if some of that doesn't work, you can always seek support, talk about it, and understand. And if you really down out, you can always seek super therapeutic support, which is out there. And I want you to know, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, but I've been around the block, and these are things that I study. And what I do for a living is actual construction. So I want you to know that when you're living intentional, one of the good things that you can do is just right now, just forgive yourself in advance for future mistakes. Because when you live intentionally and you start facing your fears, mistakes and failure is going to have to happen, because you're going to be getting out of your comfort zone. So don't forget to write down, I'm going to go forward. At the very beginning of today, I said that this intentional living and what I talk about, it's not a destination. It's not a final destination. What it really is, it's a daily practice. It's a daily practice to bring your mindset away from unintentional things happening to an intentional, logical way of living. So when things are out of control, things are overwhelmed, things are happening, ground yourself, take that pause. Don't let your emotions take the wheel. Let your logic and your reasoning take the wheel. And when you do this over time, and I've done this, and my son recognizes it, and people that work with me every day recognizes it. I don't let anything grab my emotions like I did, except sometimes when I'm driving. But, in front of people. And but I don't do it because there's people in front of me. I do it because in my life, I feel that my largest audience is myself. And I feel that you should consider that too, that let yourself be your audience. Let the love come from you. Let the criticism and the fixing of it come from you. Understand your ego. Clean up your garden inside. Pull weeds that you think are keeping you from growing. And that's where boundaries come in. Boundaries. And we were talking about boundaries last week. Remember, takers don't have limits, but givers can have limits. And if you feel you're giving too much of your energy to one thing that's taking away energy from another, then we would want to intentionally balance our life. Things can be fixed, but they can't be fixed unless you review them. They can't be fixed unless you address them. And you can't address or review without self-reflection, without some journaling. Where am I here? Where is this fear coming from? Why am I stuck in this rut in my life? Why is the same thing happening to me? It's because that's where your mindset is. If I'm having a bad day in the morning, I freaking just let it eat me all day. Remember, emotions and the way we feel, you can count them down. They last 90 seconds. But when you feed them, and when you feed thoughts of failure, when you feed thoughts of fear, and you think that it's sometimes a type of a of a drive, which it can be, but be careful of what the repetitive mindset says. That, remember, a good mindset is I got this. I can do this. Not I will try, I will do it. And I will do it means that you're constantly working on it and eventually you'll get it. So when you take action to resist getting out of your comfort zone, you're going to find a lot of vitality and happiness. And you're going to start to understand and delve into an intentional life that is now going to happen on purpose. You're going to have things that are now planned. Things are going to happen consciously, where you are living life and doing what you want to do instead of life living you and you doing what you have to do to react. And now you're living a life of reaction. When you have no control in your life, you're spending your day reacting and responding to what life's throwing your way. Well, when you live intentional, guess who the pitcher is? It's you, and you're the batter every time. And when you're living intentional, you're in control of the game of life. And look at it as a game. Love yourself. You don't need love from anyone else. And forgive yourself in advance. And then and connect to the why inside you. Why is it this way every day? Why do I feel like I'm in a rut? Why do I not look forward to get out of the bed? And you can say, I know why, because I'm dealing with too many challenges. If you want to procrastinate on something, procrastinate on living unintentionally by motivating yourself to be intentional. When you wake up, think, what do I have to look forward to today? What's one thing I have to look forward to? When you lay down at night, what's one thing that went right today? We only need one thing for a win, to have a good day. You can't let one thing wreck your day, right? But you can think of the one thing that made your day. When the sun comes out and storms will pass. So our life can be like the weather. There's going to be thunderstorms. There's going to be things that happen. And that happen. I've been texting my son for an hour to bring my dog out here. So I was really wanting everybody to meet my dog Echo. And we're going to meet him eventually. Maybe he will bring him out here. And so let's get back to you. That's what this video is about, you. So, and let's review our week 10 of 12. Week 10 of 12 was fun this week, right? We're talking about mindset and fear of resistance. Because last week on week 9, and if you're new here, you can always go to my profile and hit the link tree and watch all of these through the link tree. It'll take you right to YouTube, and you can go all the way back to the first week of living intentionally, right? Living with intention, overcoming the mindset, fear. So when we were talking about boundaries, people, and environments last week, the boundaries and people and environments was last week, but people are afraid to make boundaries. They're afraid to make changes. They're afraid to interrogate their inner critic that's trying to resist you, that's protecting your ego. And when you're letting this inner critic run your life without asking him why, or why are you thinking that about me, and you put this guy under questioning, he's going to have zero facts. You're going to find out that it's a lot of cockadoodle bullshit up there that's telling you you can't do things, when in fact it's quite to the contrary, you can, right? So connect to your whys in life. Connect to living an intentional life. Connect to the self of you that takes you out of your comfort zone. That's where you want to stay connected to. Go head on with your dreams. Find all of your, anything that makes you feel valid about yourself, find it inside yourself. Because when you're going for it somewhere else, when you're looking for it from the outside, guess what? That doesn't fill you. That doesn't satisfy, because that's needed daily. But when it comes from inside, it's always there. And you don't need false valor in your life from outside, somebody liking you, somebody sending you a like or watching your video, this or that. You need to get it from yourself. And when self-love overflows, other people feel it. So, sometimes in our life, we just need to radically lower the bar about everything outside and start working on the inside. Start working on ourselves. Start questioning our inner critic. And start looking at the emotions and the triggers that arise when we're scared, when we have fears, when we're afraid to do something, when we're afraid to tell somebody what we feel we can have. And remember, we go about all of this with kindness, especially to ourselves. When we self-reflect, to be kind, right? And when you start addressing that, and there's action involved in that, action creates momentum because we follow up on it. Thank you so much for the like. I'm glad that you're in here, Fearless. Good to see you. Action brings in your life. And sometimes we got to redefine our failure data of what failure is. Failure is part of the process. So when we're living this life of intention, remember, it's not a final destination. What it is, it's a daily reminder, little self. So you can only write a sentence at a time in a book. So when you're living your life, it's little steps, little perfect sentences that we're writing, things that align with how we want to go forward. Thank you so much, Fearless. That's what we're doing. And then when we find ourselves stuck in a rut, we're going to bring ourselves back to logical thinking. When our ego jumps in, when our self-critic jumps in, when procrastination jumps in, this is a mindset. And intentional living is a daily thing. It's a daily thing. It's not a permanent landing place. It's not a permanent place for you to live. And when you're intentionally living, I guarantee you, sometimes procrastination is still going to win. Self-doubt is still going to win. They're going to have wins, but they're going to have less wins, and it's going to happen less because when you incorporate this into your life, it starts to become a mindset. It starts to become something that you can feel. It's starting to give you a taste of freedom, a taste of being unchained, kind of like a free bird, kind of like the first time you rode your bike and giggled without training wheels on it. Maybe the first time you rolled a roller coaster and you realize that these fears and these doubts that you had about yourself and your life were never true. And I told you so. When you put your inner critic on the witness stand and you start questioning him, he is definitely not going to have any facts to back up what he's saying in your head. Can you believe that? Thank you for the shares, Fearless. He's not going to have any facts to prove why you should have these doubts. So, when you start to go about doing this and things get messy, embrace the messiness. Because when things get messy that were once normal and you're trying to change, now you can see what needs to be cleaned up. It's kind of like bringing a group of kindergartners into your living room and say, I'll be back in 20 minutes. What do you think your living room is going to look like? It's going to be pillows everywhere and everything. But now you can see what's out of the place. And sometimes when we journal and we reflect, it's like letting kindergartners up in our head. Stuff's everywhere. You can write it down. And we know where to start fixing things. We can see the mess. Recognize the mess. Do your housekeeping up here. Bring in good, let out the bad. Bring in the good, let out the bad. Kick out the critic. He's just going to be, hey, everything's fine in here. That's what he'll say when you go back in there. So when did fear or procrastination win over and you were disappointed? Where you didn't do something because of fear or procrastination, only to find out that everyone else that did it had the time of their life. You should have went. Man, you should have went there last Friday night when everybody was there. This is what happened. And now you're like, God, I should have. And that's because the critic, whoever told you in your head, whatever your procrastination was 100% false and not right. That's what we need to get away from. Logical thinking. Man, you missed out. You should have went on that ride with everybody. But you had a fear of heights. And then you come to find out that there was a huge rail there all the way. And even the other people that had the fear of heights that went on that ride felt very comfortable and safe. We got to not let our egos and our critics and our fears run our life. Remember, be your own barrier, your own guide. Step out a little bit. Don't get overwhelmed. If today you had to write a book, know that you can't, but you can write a sentence and you can perfect that sentence to put a good message out. That is a step in the right direction toward a good book, right? And your life's like that. Changing the little things that you need to change that are small, little increments. Remember, I was saying just let 25 kindergartners go out into your garage and go through your tools for a half an hour, and there's a mess. And you can put it together. But you know, when things fall apart messy, they're easier to organize, right? So let's say you have a junk drawer at your house, and you're going to open the junk drawer out. There's hundreds of things in there. Are you going to take them out one at a time and put them in place? No. What you're going to do is you're going to take it, dump it upside down, and sort it. And you're going to throw away half that crap. That's kind of like journaling for the first time. It's kind of like just making a freaking mess out of all this cockadoodle bullshit in here and start sorting it out. If messy is good, because when something's messy, you have to get organized. So if you watch me like, my life's a mess, well, that's good, because realizing it's a mess means you need to clean it up. And it's a way to go forward with that. And I'm laughing with you. My life's been a mess a lot. I've been through a lot. I'm 56 years old. But don't forget, your brains are hardwired for safety. It's hardwired to this critic with no facts. It's hardwired to have fears. It's hardwired to constantly tell you you can't do it. That is right, Brian. The first step is admitting it's a mess and rewiring our brain. The mental craftsman, rewiring the mindset that it's okay. I can tell you there was many times when I was a kid, I was afraid to jump off a ledge. And then seeing everybody jump down to that ledge into the lake and splashing and having a good time, finally I did it. And it was great. Then I ran up to do it again, ran up to do it again, right? Overcoming fears can be exhilarating, crushing fears. Living our authentic selves of who we really are. Being honest, being afraid to be honest. That's a big one in life. But especially being honest to ourselves, not just to others, but being honest with ourselves. Honesty starts right here. Right here. And expressing with kindness, with boundaries. Boundaries are very kind. You can probably remember a time, sometime in your childhood, where you walked into somebody's house, take off your shoes. This is an example I like. The next time you went to their house, you took off your shoes. You have boundaries with people. Hey, don't talk like that around me. So you don't want to say the F word or this or that. That's okay. Those are boundaries. Boundaries we give to people that we want in our lives. I want you in my life. And some of the people we avoid in life, we avoid them because we don't tell them that they're overstepping some of their boundaries, right? You know, when that one guy comes by sometimes your house, or that one girl stops over or comes in, like, oh God, here she comes. Instead of kindly saying, what difference is, it could be like, hey, maybe they talk politics and you just don't like politics. You don't want to be around that person. And that's the thing with me. I don't like politics. I don't like people that want to come complain about this governor, that president, this or that. I'm 5 weeks behind in my own life. Why do I want to hear, their political views? And I'm always behind. I think I'm 56 years behind in my own problems. And we don't have time for other people's problems. We're not here to fix it. But what I am here to help you with, to be here for support in your life, is tell you what worked for me, so you can have an objective in your life to constantly review and look at your own mess. Because I'm messy, So when you go about this, and you'll have a little voice saying, well, who do you think you are? Why are you changing? I'm not sure if I like this new you or not. I'm just scared of this. You're changing. You're freaking me out. Why? Write that down. Write that down. Organize that thought. You might be the best you've ever been if you start doing this. So week 10, 12, we got the mindset for fear, resistance, procrastination of why you get out. And you know what's funny, when I think in myself about procrastination, that's just putting shit off you don't want to do. But sometimes we do that with things we do have to do, and cleaning up our mess is something we have to do. We procrastinate because of that little critic in our head. We procrastinate because, you know what? Fixing your life is no fun. Sometimes it's just fun being ourselves. Well, it can be more fun finding out who we are. So when we're wanting to address the self-doubt, fear of failure, respond, resist with intention, understanding your fears, time management, self-regulation. So when you're pre-planning and you're doing things that are going to benefit you and benefit yourself, then uh, it's going to be a fun ride for you. And it's going to be a hard one too. But you'll wake up one morning and smile at nothing. Can you believe that? So just wake up and you're going to smile because for the first time you'll hear the rain hitting the window and feel the sun on certain days. And you'll realize that you're in the present moment. And most of us don't live in it. That's sad. Living in the present moment is listening to background noise, listening in life and feeling life happen instead of just quickly pounding down that $8 Starbucks drink. Enjoy it, be grateful for it, savor it. So you don't want to be in the worrying about the future, being dreaded from the past. Live in the moment. The gift of life is right now. It's not what's ahead of you, but it's what you're doing now. So you don't want to be living life and live in reaction. You want to be experiencing life. You want to make life happen to you instead of allowing life to happen to you and just be a bag of reaction. Be a bag of gratitude and be a bag of experiencing this life and intentionally putting yourself in situations that benefit you mentally, physically. Think about what you're eating. Think about your habits. And I got bad ones. I'm not, man, I am tell you what, I'm not here to tell you anything, but these are things I slowly do as I realize I get older. And I'm here to share that it works. It works. Living intention, having a mindset that is habitual toward being intentional. It's super important. It's just super duper important. So we're going to try to watch out for our self-doubt. We're going to take breaths when we feel that we're scared. And we're going to respond and resist with intention. That, hey, this is something that I want to do. This is something I don't want to miss out on. So connect to your why, connect to yourself, have some action, lower the bar, embrace the mess. When you're embracing with a messy action, you sometimes find out that perfectionism is just a disguise. Man, and you could ask people who really know me, I was a perfectionist. Nothing was good enough. And I'm starting to realize that messiness and disorder is necessary in life because it allows you to see where we can be better. And I think that the only thing that I'm going to keep perfect in my life would probably be the lawn outside, a tree, maybe my flower garden and what you put into it and some effort. I don't have to be perfect. I wasn't born perfect. I don't need everything to be perfect. And I think that was just a disguise for me to not realize how messy I was. And so think of your life as a junk drawer today and pull it out of the cabinet it's in and flip it over and start sorting through it with journaling, with kindness, with compassion, and hopefully some laughter. Hopefully some laughter can be in there where you can laugh at yourself like, God, I can't believe I did that, or that with some laughter. Be kind to yourself and be compassionate and understand while you're going through life that you have a perspective, right? So respect other people's perspective. Be kind to other people. Don't incriminate somebody for what they believe. Don't judge. Instead, apply all those feelings to yourself and into your own life so you can intentionally live a good life. And when you do, you will be in a much better place. The biggest favor that you can do for everybody is to understand and appreciate people's perspective in life and realize that they too are human and they have challenges. But apply that to yourself too. Be kind. You're a human. A lot of the things that you think is just in your DNA. Scanning for danger all the time and scanning for fears all the time, that's natural. And if you're male or female, or no matter where you're from around the world, all of us feel these things. All of us get scared about things. Just confront that fear and overcome it and crush it with action. And when you crush it with action and punch it in the face, then it creates momentum. And that's what you want. You want an intentional momentum. You want that wheel, that heavy wheel, that mindset to roll forward. That's what you want. And when you do that, you're going to start understanding your inner battles. Where your inner battles come from, it comes from that little critic in your head. Remember the guy that has no facts? He has facts about nothing. And he's the one that likes to point out all your flaws. That little critic. And he lives rent free. Can you believe that? You kick his ass out. And replace him with your self-talk coach, your mindset. Think about your wins. Every time you think about a failure, think about how that failure is going to drive you toward perfection. No matter who anybody is, whether you're a professional, you're a blue collar, whether you're an accountant, a doctor, this or that, whether you're a bricklayer, you know what? The longer you've done it, the better you are at it. And you can show me the nicest stonework in the world, and I will. Good morning, Jahara. And I will show you their first job, right? Thank you so much for joining. So think about that. Think about that. If you find the best artist in the world, think about that. Thanks much, Ray. Action crushes fear, and action, Farm Girl, creates momentum. It really does. I'm going to be on for a couple of more minutes, and I got to make a phone call for my guest. I was hoping that my son was going to see this text, and I guess I'll just have to go get my dog myself. But that's all right. So action crushes fear, creates momentum. Action crushes fear and creates momentum. And then confronting the action, which is really what we want to do, right? We're wanting to confront the parts of our life that are not intentional, but we're tolerating them. So in a way, they are intentional. When we're tolerating something that drains our energy, where we're doing favors, we're putting out people pleasing and things like that. And that's what we want to think about. That's part of our junk drawer, right? We're going to flip that junk drawer over. We're going to go through it. We're going to laugh. We're going to sort it. When things are all exposed, it's kind of like it's kind of like maybe my attic. God only knows what's up there. And down in my basement. It's a lot of, sometimes our life, you can look at it as though it's your storage unit, all your stuff from the past. What is it that you need? Where can you reflect? We can't hang on to the past. We can't predict the future, but what we can do is we can go forward mindful. We can address the mess with logic, and we can address the mess with a new mindset, and we can address the mess with overcoming the procrastination to clean the mess in the first place. And sometimes things have to be removed and then placed back with logic, placed back with where it makes sense for us. That's the thing. Some of our mess comes in because we have things in our life because it makes sense to our spouse, because it makes sense to our family, because it makes sense to somebody else. But it fucking makes no sense to us. So what good is that? So you want to do things that make sense to you. And then boundaries that you place. It's like this magic freaking wand. Why do you have that? It's because I like it. And you don't need, anything, in life can be explained with very less words. Hey, can you do this for me? No. Why do you do that way? Because I like it. And no explanation needed. No explanation needed. Doing it kindly. No, you're not going to be rude and shove stuff in some people's face, even though some people might need something shoved in their face. But, just do everything in life as a gentle observation. And all these little things that you're doing are little sentences that you're writing that make a lot of sense with strong communication. The lesser the words, the better. Gentle observations. Gently bringing in the boundaries that need to be in your life. Gently going about overcoming some things that you're upset about. Going gently into making changes intentionally. If you're trying to get out of something, do it little blocks at a time. If you feel that somebody else runs your weekends, make up and a schedule for yourself. I can't be here this weekend because I have other plans, and you don't even need other plans. Block time for yourself. Make sure that you are on your schedule. And we talked about this with time and energy and focus. You have to be on your schedule. And for me, I'm getting to the point where I have to be on my schedule because gardening's coming up and I like that. I like going out to the bay. So I need to make blocks of time to do what I want to do. That's what intentional living is. Doing what you want to do, not what you have to do or what you should do. There should be a block of time, and you have plenty of it. Everyone has the same time where you're doing what you want to do. That's what I want to do. And sometimes we have people in our life who are fun to do that with. And we don't have to wait for them. If they can go, they can go. But if it's something you want to do, if you want to be there, and if something that you want to do is just to be sitting sometimes out on a nice day in the sun, maybe have an umbrella or not, and just watch the water, then that's what you want to do. Fall asleep, read a book, doing what you want to do. And one of the things when I was talking earlier about going about with gentle observations, and the reason why I say that is because when we tend to give ourselves these heavy duty performance reviews, and that once again goes back to that critic inside of our head. Your life should not be a performance review.